we started with the most like straightforward and kind of upbeat song, and just gradually kind of got into more chaotic territory where we're trying new things. It's hard to predict what's going to happen.
Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Belgian Jasper. If this is your first time in the channel, hit subscribe right now.
Aki, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. In My Saddest Dreams, I Am Beside You is coming out in a few weeks when we're talking. Now, I know that you've been playing some of these songs for a long time, but does that mean that you're kind of bored of that stuff already, or are you still pretty excited for a new album coming out?
We're really excited because specifically people have come out to our shows, have seen us play them, but they haven't heard the recorded versions yet,
right,
or heard it in whole. And I think we're just really excited to see what everybody thinks about it and to like hear all the work that we've put into it in the last year.
The negative people in our lives have been a key influence for the stories that are being told, often as metaphors. Is it the you in the title the reason for, or is the you at times the support in these sad dreams?
Yeah, I think it's without getting too much into explaining what Casey wrote for them, because I know that they won't be happy with that, but I think it's more than just it's more about personal growth and personal self-discovery and dealing with like learning about and coping with our own mental state as much as it is about like anyone else and what a person did to hurt us.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That does. Is it fair to say that if we're faced with negative people, negative relationships, and so on, the problem is not only that, but also the fact that we ourselves, I don't know if allow is the right word, but allow ourselves to stay stuck in those relationships?
Yeah, I think a lot about like our mental state impacts the people that we're drawn to, that we attach to, and what we tolerate from other people. And that's not to say that like the horrific things that happen to us are our fault, because that's certainly not the case. But it's very possible to keep repeating cycles in our lives until we learn to grow as people.
Repetition or repetitive nature, that loop that we get stuck in, to me it feels like that's also what with the music, that how the album kind of comes together. Again, not to give away too much or give away too many surprises, but it feels like with the song late in the album, I Dreamt of a Room of Clouds, it feels like kind of the whole thing's kind of like falling apart, or we're waking up, but then that is followed by the final song where it seems like we're kind of getting started again in a similar pattern. Is that a right way to interpret the album then?
Yeah, the way we crafted it musically was very deliberately and in support of like the themes of the album. We kind of wanted it to... We started with the most like straightforward and kind of upbeat song, and just gradually kind of got into more chaotic territory where we're trying new things. It's hard to predict what's going to happen, that it's ups and downs, like rapid swings of emotion and feel, and that was all very deliberate on when we were writing it.
You hit us in the face in the first few songs, and there's a lot of energy happening. It's about, I think it's the fourth song that we catch our breath a little bit during midway through All Towers. That song specifically, just asking, and maybe it's just me finding things that aren't there. But that song tells me, or I think it tells me, that there's at least one big Korn fan in the band, because I feel some guitar coming from them again. I hope I'm not insulting you.
I mean, personally, like, I'm a big new metal defender. I don't know if that was specifically one of the influences. When we were writing the song, we actually were, the working title for it was Dreamwell.
Okay.
So we were actually very like, oh, we want to write like a doom metal song. Like one of KZ's favorite bands is the Body.
Okay.
Like I listen to a lot of doom metal too, so it's kind of like the big chords. We actually like Anthony comes from like a more like punk background. He writes incredible drum fills, like really intricate, cool parts. And on that song, in that whole middle section, we were like, all right, just play like 2 notes, because that's what this section needs. Like, I know you want to like play crazy drum fill, but like I think this part's gonna hit harder if you just like just kick drum and snare and like some toms. So that was one of the songs where we're like, all right, we're really starting to branch out from just doing like the screamo thing.
Yeah. Well, and absolutely, like there is obviously the screamo there, as maybe it's the, I don't know, the at the core or the bass or what have you, but there's clearly a lot of influence. We hear post-core, post-metal, there's noise rock in there. For you guys, given that you're clearly thinking about every detail and thinking ahead, does that mean that, like, are there, for the band, when anybody comes with an idea with all their everybody's different backgrounds, are there lines in the sand for your sound, or are you willing to take ideas into any direction?
I don't know if we ran into any like super hard lines. Like I'm a big fan of like post rock and like slowcore. And you've heard like the interlude reverberations. I think that was like getting my post rock fill into the album.
Yeah.
Because I also felt like it needed to break up the 2 halves of the album with like a little break. And that was being like, all right, we need to break up this album somehow. We need like just to give people's ears a rest, and to also make it more like to create contrast between the heaviest, densest, most chaotic parts on the album and the really sparse ambient parts. I'm a big fan of contrast. I think if I'd been left to my own devices, there'd probably have been more of that on the album. So I think that was a place where people were like, all right, we don't want to write a post-rock album. Like, it's great, but it's not necessarily everyone else's thing to go like full on into that. I'm also the only one in the band who likes stuff like slowcore, like like stuff like the band Low, one of my favorite bands, but and like Midwife. But I think it wasn't really the place for us to go into full on like super minimalistic down tempo music like that. So I think that's one place we didn't end up going. And I don't think we're adding those elements in like a over the top like like there's some artists who are just kind of going between styles like one to the next like every few seconds, and like I think that's sick. One of the band Omerta we toured with, like really sick band, and they do that going between all these different styles back to back to back, and like I think that's fucking awesome. For Dreamwell, I think we tend to be a little more subtle with that, in that it's like, oh, that kind of sounds like they're influenced by this. It's like, oh, this is screamo and maybe something else. So I think people wanted to stay away from like really hitting people over the head with all the stylistic changes.
When you say, if it was up to me, there would be more of that, leading me to believe that you've had more than enough inspiration for it, does that mean that we should expect more material under your own name or something else to be released soon?
Yeah, I'm actually working on like a solo album that will hopefully be out next year. I think doing that kind of like gives me the space to let Dreamwell be what it's going to be, instead of being like, oh, I have to get every little bit of my musical inspiration into this. And then I can be like, all right, this is the direction that this band is taking us. And like, they don't want to do a dream pop song. I get it. So I can do that on my own. So it's even more so kind of like a little bit of everything, and just giving my space to let myself explore all of those things.
Okay. Now talk about exploring in music and so on. You don't only do that for your own projects or bands. We obviously, the people that follow you know that, you know, you're the driving force behind New House Studios and that you work with many bands. Do you consider yourself are you a musician with a love for the technicalities that come around it, or do you consider yourself, no, I'm a music professional that just also likes to play music?
I think I've always considered myself a musician and a writer, like a music writer first. And the reason I got into recording was I was like, I have to record these ideas somehow. But I have started to think of myself more as somebody who really specializes in like kind of helping to fulfill a vision, or helping to add the polish on something and wrap something up. I'm finding it much harder for myself to start with a blank slate and create with a blank slate. I really like to come in when there's something there. Sometimes I have to trick myself. And I'll like write some riffs, get some videos of riffs, and I'll just hide them from myself. And then I'll come back to them like a year later, and I'll be like, all right, I know exactly what to do with these now. Because it's not like I'm starting with nothing. There's a bunch of songs on this album where basically Ryan, our other guitarist, is the type to just get all these like 30-second to a minute videos of them playing guitar, putting them in our band chat, and then I'll be like, oh, I feel like it might do this. We all come together and then like kind of flesh the songs out. But I feel like I operate way better in the space where an idea is presented to me and I can offer my insight on what direction to take things. So it's actually been pretty challenging having to start with nothing on some of these songs for my like solo stuff.
Yes, you bring your element to their music, but you also have to find a way to make your element work for all these different people and different visions. What's been like the biggest lesson for you in that journey, and have you seen your own writing change dramatically since you started working on those aspects of the business?
So like being a mix engineer like really takes like, you really have to learn humility and like kind of knowing your place in a project. A lot of times the best thing you can do for a mix is to not make your presence known at all. Like a lot of the mix, like unless somebody tells me I want this to sound like an Aki album, which hasn't really even happened that much, then I don't want it to sound like it's an album that I made. I really have to focus my energy into trying to learn what the artist's vision is, and I think that's probably like the most important element of producing and mixing an album. Even more than all the technical things, those are all just tools. It's not like you can do a bad mix, you can do a good mix, you can do a good mix that isn't what the artist wants using a certain like tool that someone might consider like essential. The most important thing to me is listening to the artist, listening to what they're saying. And this is often coming from people who don't have an extensive technical language to explain things in a precise way. So they're kind of pointing to other albums, using words that may mean something else to me than they mean to them. And really having to put all those clues together and be like, this is what they want this to sound like. And at the end of the day, I want people to listen to those albums and be like, oh, this sounds like they really saw through their vision. They really they really had a vision. This really sounds like this artist. And not like, oh, Aki did a really... Like, if somebody knows I mixed it and like, oh, this is a good mix, I'm like, thank you.
Yeah,
but the average person doesn't care about that. They care about the album and what it makes them feel and what the artist was trying to say. And that's the best compliment I could get, is somebody saying that the artist really achieved what they set out to do, because that's what I'm trying to do. As far as how that's impacted my own writing, it's really had an immense impact to work with so many musicians and hear so much music that I wouldn't get to hear otherwise, and not just like it's one thing to passively have music on when I'm like working on something else, but when you're working on the music, when you're dissecting it and processing it and listening to it for hours on end, and you're really learning a lot more. It's honestly like one of the best experiences I could have for learning how to compose and to arrange that I could ask for. Like to hear a finished product and also see all of its components and be like, oh, this was like 20 different little like string tracks all pieced together. Like, that's good to know. I think one section that really you can really hear that is on, you're talking about Towers. The very end of it, there's like the little violin outro. That was me just playing violin and layering a whole bunch of tracks. Like, that wasn't like a sample or like a synth or anything. Cool. I've worked with this artist. She's a really talented ambient, experimental, and like noise artist named Sylvia Haynes. I've worked on a few albums for her. Started with mastering and ended up doing a lot of mixing for her too. She's like really prolific. She sent me like a whole bunch of albums to work on last year, and especially her string arrangements were so interesting to me, because like she didn't have like an orchestra record this. It was her layering like 20 or 30 different string parts, because that's what she had. She had her bass and she had a friend who played violin. And she creates these like massive arrangements out of all these different takes over one another of the instruments playing different sounds, and like maybe it's just chords, maybe it's different movements. Actually owe a lot of that last section to her, because I was just kind of doing slides and layering the slides in different ways and doing all these plucks and creepy scrapes and stuff, and just layering it together into this soundscape that kind of like grows. And that's something I would have had no idea to do if I had never had gotten to mix that.
Let's shift gears to the tour that you guys are doing in November. For a lot of people, and the tour's coming to Toronto as well, which is really exciting. But for a lot of people that will, go and see you, it's likely the first time they have a chance to see you play, since a lot of material came out. The previous album came out not too long ago, but because of the world and its state, and not everybody being out just yet as much as they are now, what should those people that are coming to the show, what should they expect? Like, are you heavily promoting the new album? Should we expect a bit of a mix of the last album and this album? What's the plan?
At this point, I think we're gonna be mostly playing songs from the new album, just because it'll be out, and I mean, we'll play like the most popular songs. We'll play Painting and Sayaka for sure. We still know all the other songs, so like, if people are just like so hype about us playing and want like us to play more stuff, like we can always like bring one or two of those songs out. We haven't forgot them, but the focus definitely will be on the new album. So people should listen to it a lot in the 10 days between the album coming out and the tour starting, if they want to be familiar with our music. Because I think it's mostly gonna be songs from that. We've already been playing a lot of the songs off of it. It's just people probably are like, oh, I guess that's new? Question mark.
Awesome. Well, Aki, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. You know, it's exciting to see the album come out. It looks great as well. We didn't even went into the artwork, but that came out really nice as well. But super excited for you guys to release the new album, and I wish you guys all the best on the upcoming tour. That'll be a lot of fun. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
You are awesome for watching this video. Click right here to see more content like it and subscribe to the channel.